Check 1 2, check 1 2. This is Derrick, Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network. I'm trying this again, going out for my Friday broadcast of the Conscious Resistance Live, episode number 71. Let me know if you can hear me. It seems like we were having some problems a minute ago. It was freezing, or people couldn't hear me through these headphones. I'm not sure. They seem to be working for some people and not others. So let me know before we move forward if you can hear me okay, first of all. If you can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up. And then if you can hear me, go ahead and let everybody know where you're listening from. Start commenting below. I'm in Houston, Texas, wherever you're at, so we can try to connect with each other and meet those who are close to us in our community so we can get involved, start building freedom cells, start building tight-knit communities, stronger local bonds. Everything going good? Cool. Still no audio for some. Sounds good for some. Hope I spelled it right. Yeah. Hey, nice to see you. Okay, so I don't know. Some of you guys, you can hear me, obviously. Others, you can't. I'm going to go ahead and continue. Not sure what to do, guys. If you can hear me, though, give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Yeah? Cool. Cool. Denton, Texas. Awesome. Okay, Texas. There we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing this out, guys. Thank you guys so much for this. Once again, my name is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. I write for activistpost.com. I write for theantimedia.org. I write for mintpressnews.com, and I also run the Conscious Resistance Network, and I'm involved with the Houston Freethinkers. I'm getting ready to go out on a tour this summer, and it's going to be going to 52 cities now. We just added a new city to all over the United States to spread the message of liberty, of agorism, of counter-economics, freedom cells, community building, spiritual empowerment, and self-awareness, self-reflection, and a true message of liberation of the spirit, mind, body. Holistic anarchism is what we call it. And if you're into these ideas, if you've seen my journalism but you've never checked out my more philosophical work, I guess you could say, my more vision of the future, especially in my new book, Manifesto of the Free Humans, please do check it out at theconsciousresistance.com /books. And also, we're going to be going on tour, as I mentioned, so you can find that at theconsciousresistance.com /tour. 52 cities, starting June 1st. It's coming up. And on that note, before I get into the news, because this is a weekly update view of what's going on in the world, I'll share those links. I want to announce that we just got funded the Decentralize Your Life tour that I'm going to be doing this summer, which is going to spread all the ideas and the concepts I just mentioned. Has officially found our first sponsor, and hopefully one of many more that we'll get, but definitely our exclusive cryptocurrency sponsor that we're going to be dealing with, Bitcoin.com. Some of you may know the name Roger Ver, sometimes known as the Bitcoin Jesus, because he is an early investor in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and made quite a bit of money, and he renounced his U.S. citizenship. And him and his team, they really believe in the message of agorism and what we're trying to do, and they want to help spread it. So they are now becoming our funding this tour, covering all of our costs that we're going to need for everything from food to gas to fixing up the car, paying for all our costs. It's all taken care of thanks to Bitcoin.com. So very much thank you. Please do check out their website, Bitcoin.com, for all the news you'd like to know about Bitcoin. Good friends of mine like Sterling, Lujan, and others actually write for Bitcoin.com, and we're really excited to work with them. So now the tour is officially Bitcoin.com, and the Conscious Resistance Network presents the Decentralize Your Life tour. So you can find that once again at theconsciousresistance.com /tour. And yes, I will be coming to the Bay Area. All the dates are there. We're coming to we're heading the West Coast in the middle of July through August, and then we'll be going East Coast in October, and all those dates are up there at theconsciousresistance.com /tour. Once again, my name is Derrick Broze, freelance journalist, Houston, Texas. The links are right up there. And if you want to go ahead and let everybody know where you're listening from so we can connect with each other. And once again, the concepts in the book and in my work are called freedom cells. So check out freedomcells.org, and you can find out more about these ideas and how to use that website, that network, to connect to people within a certain radius to you, and to come together to build local power, to decentralize from the food production systems and start growing your own food, community gardens, community farming, to start working in cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Dash and others, to decentralize from the economic systems. And you can start decentralizing from the education systems by raising your kids in different ways, decentralized education in the sense of world schooling and unschooling and homeschooling and peaceful parenting, and decentralizing by supporting true independent media. And you can decentralize and the sense of defense and start taking care of your own communities and building local power and community watch and neighborhood watch and things like this. All of this together becomes this parallel network that some would call the counter economy, what we're calling the freedom cell network. And cells in the sense of cells, like we're each an individual cell in the body that is like powerful and unique and beautiful and capable on its own, but we're also part of this larger collective of cells that are doing this bigger purpose and serving a bigger purpose. So we're all a part of that. So yeah, sorry I'm ranting here. Let's get into the news once again. Check out my workout at theconsciousresistance.com right here. You're looking at my personal computer. That's all the content on our website right now. I just updated it, including last week's episode. So every week after I broadcast this, I load it up to YouTube. It's there. You can see last week I talked about my report, Syria, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, what you need to know. Go check that out at theconsciousresistance.com. And I've got a lot of other work there and new updates from the Freethinker House where I live, which these are the people that are going to be going on the tour and everything. So yada, yada, yada. That's where you can find me at theconsciousresistance.com. You can also find all my journalism at derrickbroze.contently.com. derrickbroze.contently.com. All my articles for anti-media, Actors Post, and Mint Press News. Check that out right there. All right, so let's dive into it. First story that I want to cover is from the anti-media, and it's written by a friend here. It's called Trump's Phony World War III. And if you watched my video that I just mentioned, the Syria, North Korea, Russia, and Iran, then you saw that I laid out all the facts of what's going on in the world. And by the way, I'm going to post these links below, this Trump's Phony World War III. I'm going to post that to the Conscious Resistance Network page right now. Boom. But I laid out the idea that all these different scenarios that are going on and the power plays that are taking place, but also still kind of questioning and laying out the possibility that this push for constant war, it may be driven by more of a need to keep the people in a state of fear, and rather than an actual, push for war. What I'm saying is that not that North Korea is not a horrible place for their people to be and totalitarian and has a cult of personality state, but they're not a realistic threat to the United States. They barely are. You can see that they lack electricity. The people are suffering in a lot of different ways, and also the idea that ISIS, these small groups of people, are really this huge threat to the U.S., especially when you know that the United States' own government, elements of the United States government, were involved in the creation of what became ISIS. And again, if you need to resource this, just go to any of the websites I just mentioned, the antimediaactivistpost.com, and research. Do a Google search of ISIS. Look up Ben Swann's report on ISIS. I mean, I don't want to just sound patronizing, but it should be a known fact by now. It's 2017. People know that the CIA, the Department of Defense's own documents even mentioned that they knew some of their actions and getting involved with funding these various rebel groups was going to lead to what has become ISIS, and that the rebels that the U.S. has funded in this quote-unquote civil war in U.S. Have been Al-Qaeda and other groups on ESO front that they have said are terrorists. So the U.S. is funding terrorism just like they have throughout their history, and they did it in the 80s when they worked with Osama bin Laden to fight the Russians, and this is just more of the same. So again, I'm not trying to be patronizing. I'm just saying if you do the research, if you do a little bit of research and just go back a little bit in history, you can see this pattern, and it's taking place. So this article here, it asks the question is, are these moves really, is there really a war taking place here? And it kind of points to a few different facts that question whether or not the Russians and the Chinese and the U.S. are really as much in each other's face. Like right here, he says, for their part, the Russian authorities denied reports that they are moving their troops to their border as well. Are we being lied to about the current escalation of wartime activities in the Middle East and Asia? Are we being duped right now? Following these recent developments, the focus has again switched to another adversary. The Trump administration apparently remembered that ultimately the prize in the region is Iran. So he's just going into talking about how they keep hopping from one nation to the other. And if you know about General Wesley Clark, in the interview he gave shortly after 9/11 on Democracy Now!, he talked about the U.S. had a plan to go into 7 nations. That's also been confirmed in the recently declassified CIA document from 1983, where they talk about a plan to try to overthrow Assad. So, I mean, we know that this has been a long-term game that's been going on for many generations, and under many administrations, they've been trying to get rid of the Assad family. So, yeah, just remember that. A lot of times I'm weary to cover the World War III is coming stories, which is what my show was about last week, because I don't want to just feed into the negativity and the fear and this sort of throwing people off balance by talking just like everything's on edge. It doesn't mean it. For me, it's a reminder like, damn, if something did really happen, I need to be better prepared. And I consider myself to be a fairly well-prepared person, but I realize, you know what, I need to get better prepared. So this is what Freedom Cells are about as well, having a small group of people to get knowledge, to share knowledge and skills and supplies. You can use it in preparation and different things like that. Just look up freedomcells.org, please. So this next story is also from the antimedia.org, just published today from Carrie Weather. Study on potential DAPL oil spill deemed too dangerous to be made public. Now, some of you may know I was reporting from the Dakota Access Pipeline in August, October, and December, and that I was tased and pepper sprayed while I was there, reporting for Mint Press News. So, you know, I followed the story closely. Well, this is just a new recent development, and I'm going to, again, share this link to you wherever you're following along, whether you're following along on the Mind Unleashed. Shout out to everyone at the Mind Unleashed or the Conscious Resistance Network, sharing that out there. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is reportedly withholding a recent study on the effects a spill from the Dakota Access Pipeline could have on the environment. The pipeline, which inspired months of protests and heavy-handed tactics from police in North Dakota, was delayed in December, but fast-tracked when President Trump took office. It is expected to be operational within a month. In March, independent news organization Muckrock, they do great work, filed a Freedom of Information request to gain access to the environmental assessment the Corps had conducted to determine the effects on oil spill. Huffington Post explained what prompted Muckrock co-founder, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so he's basically saying he filed a open records request to see what was going on, and he found the existence of an internal Army Corps memo about the controversial pipeline. The memo contained several documents were withheld from the public and from representatives of the tribe, the Standing Rock Sioux Nation, that has objected to the project. So basically showing that they directly hid documents and evidence in this study. So they want the public to trust the Army Corps of Engineers when they say they've done some proper testing. And why should we ever really trust the state? We should always be skeptical of the state and their proclamations. So a letter from the Army Corps lawyer Damon Roberts, who denied the FOIA request, said the reference document contains information related to sensitive infrastructure that, if misused, could endanger people's lives and property. So they're just trying to say it's national security type things, and this looks like it's going to be a court battle that's going to go on for a little bit, as Muckrock tries to sue the Army Corps of Engineers to try to get them to release the details about that. I've just posted that link. Just another disgusting example of why everything about that pipeline, for some reason people were really blindsided and they couldn't tell which side they wanted to go on with this issue. But it's pretty clear to me, no matter what position you take and where you're at ideologically, that it's a danger to the environment. It involves statism. It involves, just corruption. It involves a threat to indigenous communities and to their rights, and it involves violations of treaties that go far, far back. So the whole thing is just a horrible, horrible plan, and the idea that anybody could think otherwise or just be so focused on an economic gain and say that, well, screw the possibilities, there's a few temporary jobs to be made, because that's the real deal. Is they weren't, there's jobs they're promising. As usual, they're always temporary jobs. They don't really provide anything long term. So on that. This new one is an article that I just wrote that I want to cover for you, because I've talked about this recently, my work about the geoengineering. I don't know how many people follow geoengineering. I don't like to use the word chemtrails because of obviously it triggers people. It has these, it doesn't seem proper when we have a science known, geoengineering, that does this mass climate engineering, mass modification of the climate and the weather. So I talked about how recently some Harvard scientists and the Trump administration basically announced that they're going to start doing, by 2018 in Arizona, doing this public geoengineering test with a balloon and some different things. And then they say they want to start a spraying program to go on for a century, to start spraying for 100 years. And for those who believe that geoengineering has been taking place for generations and for quite some time now, we're like, wait, this is what we've been saying. And now it seems to me like we're at this point where it's starting to become normalized. Now it's hitting the mainstream more often. And I keep up with geoengineering news through a feed reader, so I constantly see new articles and all the different people in the industry. It's being talked about more and more. This article right here I just put out today, climate scientist warns against geoengineering at TED conference Vancouver. So TED, you guys know the TED Talks. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. They have their their annual conference in Vancouver, Canada. And they also, of course, have the TEDx regional events and TED Global. Well, just this past week, there was the TED Talks, and at the 2017 TED Talks, several of the speakers there discussed the now newly mainstream idea of geoengineering. So this is according to Business Insider. It says, on Wednesday morning, computer theorist Danny Hillis got on stage and proposed a series of ideas for what he called a thermostat to turn down the temperature of the Earth. Hillis, the founding partner of tech innovation company Applied Invention, rattled off a number of geoengineering concepts. And I give right here the definition according to the U.S. Congress, their own definition of what geoengineering, and it basically says that it's the mass engineering, climate engineering of the weather. It says the term geoengineering describes the array of technologies that aim through large-scale and deliberate modifications of the Earth's energy balance to reduce temperatures and counteract anthropogenic climate change. So it's aimed at fighting global warming, they say. Most of these technologies are the conceptual research stages, but obviously now these are changing. And one of the most particularly interesting types of geoengineering is known as SRM, solar radiation management, because, or sometimes known as albedo modification. And basically what that involves is spraying aerosols out of the back of planes. That's what SRM is. So SRM is a lot of what people talk about when they see these lines in the sky and they say, look, there's things coming out of the planes. People say those are just contrails. But when you look at these plans for this supposedly research stage only solar radiation management geoengineering, it looks a lot like what people are saying is already happening. So this is why I'm saying this is becoming a normalization of it, where they're just introducing it into the public, and all those people who denied it was happening are going to say, no, you guys were crazy, it was never happening. Now it's happening, but it wasn't before, and it's a really scary thing to think about. But either way, so this climate scientist, among others, were out there telling the TED people, the TED audience, that in order to undo the effects of the CO2 they've already released, we have to put chalk in the sky at a rate of 10 teragrams a year. So then another climate scientist, Kate Marvel, was given a chance to respond to this guy and his idea. She's an associate research scientist at Columbia University as well as a science fellow at Stanford. She said, Danny, you seem so nice and I hope we can be friends, and you terrify me. Geoengineering is like a doctor who says, you have a fever, I know exactly why you have a fever, and we're not going to treat that. We're going to give you ibuprofen, and also your nose is going to fall off. She says it is a band-aid for the problem accompanied by consequences we can't currently imagine. And she just basically said that, stated the reducing of amount of sunlight is problematic and would not do anything to address other environmental dangers such as ocean acidification. And then there was other scientists, researchers from University of Oxford, Tim Kruger, also calling for geoengineering. And yeah, so this researcher, this climate scientist, she's calling it out, and it's pretty interesting. This just happened here at the TED Talks. They're all out there pushing it, and she's like, you guys are crazy. This is not good. And if you don't believe this article that I wrote here that I just posted, the link above as well for you on Mind Unleashed and for the Conscious Resistance, it goes into the history of weather modification, the use of that, also recent studies from the United Nations and from other institutions. There's tons of studies that have shown that we could potentially lose blue skies if they start spraying these things in the air. And there's also been one study that showed once you start spraying, you can't stop because it will cause it would actually cause the thing they're trying to stop, this massive increase in temperatures. So the reality is that if they were covertly, secretly doing it, maybe to test it out years ago, or some people say to poison people, I don't know, I'll let you decide. But if they were doing that, which the government is known to do things covertly and then apologize for it later, look at what they've done in the history of this country. They've tested on their own people plenty of times. So it's possible they have been doing that. Maybe either, like, you imagine some mad scientist who really thinks he's trying to save the world, but he's doing it without, the approval of the people, or government's gone wild. Whatever it may be, if it's already happening, the studies are showing that they can't stop it. So that's probably why they're introducing it closer and closer. And the article that I put together goes further on from there. So please check that out again. That is coming from activistpost.com. Climate scientist warns against geoengineering at TED Conference, Vancouver, is where you can find that out. And I got two more quick ones for you guys right here. This one is really another controversial topic. California court upholds Berkeley's cell phone warning. I just wrote this a couple days ago. And basically, you had in Berkeley, they passed this, what some call the Right to Know ordinance in June 2015, which required retailers to put warnings on their cell phones and cellular devices that told people, that if they kept it in their pockets or in their bras, that they could get sick, basically. And the Cellular Telephone Industries Association, a wireless industry trade group, sued the city of Berkeley, saying that it violates their First Amendment by forcing them to spread a message that they say is misleading, and they say that there's no evidence that cell phones are dangerous to you. Now, this is, again, it's a controversial topic because there are indeed a few different studies who have shown some different signs and worrisome things. There's not been enough studies, and when you think about it, though, it is kind of crazy because they become such a part of regular everyday life for most people in the world now that we're carrying them on us all the time in our pockets, all over our bodies. And yes, I guess we won't see the results of this for another 20 years or so to see what really happens. But this lawsuit is trying to stop the city. Now, for me, as an individual who doesn't choose to use the government to fight my battles, it's interesting because I'm just like, I don't really want to support the state and the idea of them telling people, businesses what to do. But I do think that there might be something to this risk of cell phones, And so just check this article out. That's all I really want to say on that. I want to leave that to you guys to look up for yourselves because, what are your thoughts? Because one study from Denmark, an 18-month study, compared cancer rates in 360,000 cell phone users to adults without cell phones, and they found no connection to brain or spinal cord tumors. So still others, there was another study, you can go back and forth. There's one study here, there's a study in Australia, a study in India that found that men who use their cell phones most frequently and kept them in their pants pockets had lower sperm counts than those who use cell phones less often. So no real hardcore connections, but definitely something to look into and to be aware of because, as I said, it's become so essential to our lives. Once again, if you're tuned in, this is episode number 71 of the Conscious Resistance Live. My name is Derrick Broze, and you are tuned in. Thank you. I do this every Friday. I've been doing it off and on for a few years now. Thank you for supporting me. If you'd like to support me even further, you can go to patreon.com/DerrickBroze. I got one more story for you today, and then we're out of here. And I appreciate your time, everybody who's been tuned in and who's shared this. Once again, if you haven't, please comment below. Let everybody know where you're listening from so you guys can try to connect. Maybe find people through freedomcells.org. It's a good way to connect to people and a way to find people in your community that you can actually take action with. This is an interesting story. It says, a new coalition is formed to stop the Trump administration from forcing travelers to give up their passwords. They're called the Fly Don't Spy Coalition. Now, if you're wondering what this is about, well, along with this extreme vetting that Donald Trump has talked about of immigrants and of people traveling to the United States, one of the things they've talked about and floated the idea of, and I think they're already doing voluntarily at this point, is having people who are applying for visas or who are coming back into the United States and making them give them their digital devices, their cell phones, their tablets, whatever, and telling them, give us your passwords, and then they can do whatever. and the person can refuse to, but they won't be let in, and the police or the Border Patrol, whoever, the DHS, they might just take their device. And this is because in the United States, you have no Fourth Amendment protections under the Constitution like you do everywhere else, not along the border. They don't exist, and that's just the reality of this. So 29 organizations, digital rights, civil liberties, and privacy organizations, including the American Civil Liberties Union, Electronic Frontier Foundation, and the Electronic Privacy Information Center, came together to form this Fly Don't Spy coalition. And they're opposing the Trump administration policy of requiring travelers to give up sensitive information, as I said, passwords. And the DHS Security Secretary John Kelly, he's talked about doing password for entry schemes. So if you check out flydon'tspy.com, you can see more about this issue, and it's very important because if this continues and people just give up their passwords, what's next? They're going to keep taking whatever they can unless people put up a front. And I know this firsthand because in Houston, in 2012, the group that I work, the Houston Freethinkers, they launched this national program, and Houston was the pilot city called for Bus Safe. It was Bus Safe, and it was the DHS, the TSA, local politicians, and they announced this thing where they were going to start doing drug sniffing dogs on all the buses, random searches to anybody riding the buses, random ID checks, and this kind of stuff. And it's just basically saying you have no rights if you just choose to ride the bus. And who usually rides the bus but lower income folks who need the bus, like myself, who don't have a car or choose not to have a car. So it's targeting low income communities once again. And they were only able to do this 1 day or 2 days. And of course the excuse they say is terrorism or whatever. And all they're really catching is prostitution and people selling cannabis or something. So non-violent crimes, people voluntarily doing something, selling their body or selling a plant, free people doing what they choose. Just the state says it's wrong, but really are they terrorists? I don't think so. So just going after the people. Well, we organized it. We went to the Metro Board meeting 2 times in a row, and after 2 meetings, only 2 meetings, working with the local lawyers and organizations, we teamed up and we shut down this program, forced them to shut this program down. The only city in the country to kick the TSA out of here. They're still in the airports, but we kicked them off the buses so that people who are riding the buses don't have to be searched and taken away their rights. I mean, ultimately, you only have the rights that you're willing to stand up for and assert and say, I have this. Otherwise, it's just, it's a privilege or it's just an idea. It's something on paper, but it doesn't really exist. Anyways, so they're talking about trying to eventually expand the program to ask travelers to hand over their social media accounts voluntarily. And this coalition's coming together. And then also, this relates to another story I wrote a couple weeks ago about how 4 different senators or members of Congress have introduced legislation that would require border agents to get a warrant before searching people's cell phones, laptops, or tablets. And this would also it makes it more difficult because, again, in the border, they pretty much do whatever they want. And it says that the bill makes it clear that agents cannot hold individuals for more than 4 hours in an attempt to force them to unlock their devices. So, yeah, and then also, as a NBC News study showed that an increase from 5,000 warrantless searches in 2015 along the border to 25,000 in 2016. Like, that's insane. 5 times the amount in 1 year. This data from the Department of Homeland Security shows that an astonishing 5,000 people were searched along the border in February 2017. So already, just in 1 month this year, 5,000 people were searched without warrants along the border. It's crazy, and this is how it happens. They start along the border, it spreads and spreads and spreads until there are no more rights. There's no more free speech boxes or free speech zones. So I'm posting that link right there if you're listening on the Mind Unleashed or the Conscious Resistance. And once again, I'm going to repeat myself just for those who don't know. My name is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network, activistpost.com, theantimedia.org. I'm partnered with the Mind Unleashed. I'm going on tour this summer to spread my message of awareness, to spread the message of spiritual, mental, and physical liberation, of health. We are going on the Bitcoin.com presents Decentralize Your Life tour. Check out theconsciousresistance.com/tour. If you want to find out more about my message, if you want to support me personally, if you want to support my books, I've got some ideas on how to make the world a better place. And if you want to look more into that, do so. And while we're on tour this summer, and we're doing 51 cities around the U.S., around the United States, we're going to be doing daily updates and broadcasting through the Mind Unleashed and the Conscious Resistance Network and elsewhere. So you guys will be with us on the road. And come find us, come get involved. It's time for us to build a better world, and it starts with inside each and every one of us. We don't have to wait for the state or any other institution to do it for us. Remember that we are the most important people when it comes to changing for the next generation. We can't just pass that, the baton off to the state and hope that this institution can fulfill what we want to see. Or this is another important point that I've been remembering more and more lately, is that this world is not going to conform to your vision of your reality, your ideal reality. You have to decide what's more important to me is to have time for meditation every day, or to have time with my family, or to go on trips, or to whatever it is that you truly desire. Make that more important than working for somebody else for 70, 80 hours a week and being miserable. Start putting your spiritual, mental, and physical needs first. How much different would the world look if we put those objectives first and those needs first and those values before how much money can I make or how big of a house can my family get? What if the first question you guys ask is, what's going to lead us to more happiness? And then you talked with your family and you communicated that, or your loved ones, or yourself, just your own mind, and say, what is really going to make me happy? Is it going to be slaving away at some place 70 hours a week? And maybe you enjoy the job you have, and that's fine, and that's rare. I love being a journalist and freelancing, but it's because I have the time of day to do whatever I want, to try new skills. Painting, see some of those paintings back there, working on some stuff. Woodworking, writing, new books, and just exploring the beauty of the human mind and pushing myself to self-actualization. And this is something that is mentioned in my new book, Manifesto of the Free Humans. I just want to throw it out there. And again, you can download it for free at theconsciousresistance.com/books. So I'm not just trying to sell it to you. Go download it for free, all three of them. I believe there's some positive answers in that. So I'm trying to push myself in all directions, in all ways, mental, physical, spiritual, to be the best that I can be. And if we all aim like that, then I believe it's possible that we could create a stateless world, or a world where people who choose not to use violence in their interactions, and a truly peaceful world. And for those who want to live under a state for as long as it exists, they can have that right as well. But it's time for a mass movement to vacate and to exit the state, to stop feeding and stop feeding this machine, and to exit and to take all of our energy, our spiritual energy that this machine is harnessed, and this parasite class, this predator class has harnessed and is trying to drain from us. We need to redirect that back into our own minds and our own hearts and in our communities, and see the power that's already there, and recognize that we are power. And when we see that we are this source of fuel. They're trying to mine us like a source of fuel, and we have to redirect that fuel to our needs and to the people's needs, and make it about our goals of creating a world that respects and honors the health of the people and the planet and all life and each of us. And if we can do that, which we can, if it's ever going to be possible, it has to start now. I mean, we literally have to start changing who we are now, and start the way we communicate with each other, the way we raise our kids, the way we work. We don't cooperate with violence, and we teach people that it's more important, or at least in my mind. Maybe I'm an extremist. I don't know. I'd rather be freaking poor and broke than contribute to the Federal Reserve System. And yes, I have to use dollars, just like everybody, but I get paid in Bitcoin as often. I try to use black market, gray market tactics. And this is not a shaming of anybody. I'm just saying, I am an extremist, because even I joked the other day, I was driving a friend's car, Miriam's car, and I was avoided the Chase Bank parking lot, because I'm I don't even want to drive in Chase Bank's parking lot. I don't even want to give them that much, because fuck those guys, and fuck JP Morgan Chase and the people who've been running things around the world and trying to starve people out and funding conflicts around the world. I don't even want to give those people the time of day. I don't want to work with their banks. I don't want to work with any of these people who took from the American people or from the people around the world, or who work with the Federal Reserve. Screw them all. Yes, mass meditation is needed. We need to lift ourselves up. But we also need to realize that we have to counteract the spiritual awareness with action, and that action includes divesting, breaking free of those systems. So not using their dollar, not using their food production systems, really decentralizing from the system. That's why our tour is called the Decentralize Your Life Tour. Once again, theconsciousresistance.com/tour. Check out all the tour dates and see an explanation of what the tour is about, all the great things we're doing, community involvement, community volunteering all around the country, not just coming to speak our message, but to contribute and to learn from each community. Because that's how we're going to grow. You guys have the answers. You have answers. I have a few answers. You have plenty of answers. We all got answers. We work together. We use technology, freedomcells.org. We use apps like nextdoor.com. We use Facebook Live, and we find ways to communicate together and to grow and to grow and to grow and to grow and to connect. And I know I'm ranting now, so I'm going to shut this down, but just wanted to let you guys know that there is hope. There's a reason to believe that the better world is possible. Some of us are working on these ideas. Some of us are already living it. Let's work together. Let's find a way to create that better world. Find me at Derrick Broze, Broze, on Facebook, The Conscious Resistance Network. Email me at derrick@theconsciousresistance.com if you want to get involved, work together in some way. Thank you guys for listening. I'm here every Friday night. Enjoy your evening. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.